A child once stood in front of a portrait of his father, a world-renowned R&B star, and asked his mother, "Do you love me? If you've hurt so many people, it's a tragedy that the spotlight never shines on." An artist was caught having an affair with his best friend's late wife's stepchild. Another once sexually assaulted a fan in the studio and wrote a song inspired by it. And there was a man who hid dozens of videos of women secretly filmed in the toilet, all while standing on stage, wearing a white tuxedo and singing about love. What you're about to see is not to condemn, but to understand that sometimes the spotlight is the perfect trap for the darkness, and the most horrifying secrets are still waiting for you behind. If you're brave enough to look the dark side of fame in the eye, stay until the end, because the untold stories are always behind the longest applause. 19. David Ruffin, Motown's Angel of Deception, the unseen top secret. They call him the Motown icon, the man who sang My Girl and made millions of women melt. But did you know that he was the man who sent the woman he loved to the hospital? Multiple times, Tammy Terrell's medical records have never been fully released, to this day. Some people believe that her death was not due to a medical condition. David Ruffin entered the music scene as a phenomenon. His pompadour-style hair, his incredibly beautiful tenor, and his mesmerizing eyes that seemed to hide something, but no one knew that when he left the stage. David would often disappear into luxury cars with 3 women at a time. No one knew their identities, only that they never returned. "I saw David do drugs right before he went on stage," a drummer once said, but he sang like nothing had happened. There was just a look in his eyes, the look of someone who was fighting with himself. Tammy Terrell, his doomed lover, was found in her bathroom, her head banged against the sink. She never said it, but a close friend said she whispered, "If I die, don't let David near my body." Those words were never confirmed, but at Tammy's funeral, David Ruffin appeared out of nowhere, forced his way onto the stage, and shouted, "I'll sing for her, I'm the one she loved." Tammy's family had him thrown out of the church. After being expelled from the Temptations for seeing himself as the only star, David spiraled downward. He would call his old friends at night, cry unconsciously, and then hang up. One time, he stood in front of a mirror, smashed it, and said, "I see the devil in my eyes." Police arrested him when he tried to break into the home of an ex-girlfriend who had sued him for assault. In 1991, David was found dead in a Philadelphia motel. A stranger dropped him off at the front door of a hospital and drove away. No one identified the man. A dangerous dose of amphetamines was found in his blood. There was no money in his wallet, only a crumpled photo of him and Tammy, with the words, "I should have changed." The press called his death unsurprising, but longtime fans wept silently. One wrote on his blog, "David Ruffin didn't need forgiveness, he needed saving." There are secrets that Motown wants to keep hidden forever, but behind the gentle love songs is a broken heart, and a soul that will never find its way back. And sometimes, the person who broke the heart of others is also the person who no one taught how to love himself. 18. Millie Jackson, Queen of the Bedroom, the black file no one dare open. She was once a woman who made men bow their heads on stage, but behind her dirty lyrics was a secret file that the music industry tried to hide. Millie Jackson didn't sing. She vented her anger into the microphone. When the world was still shy about sex, she stepped on stage with a challenge, "I'm going to say everything women have been forced to keep quiet about." But few people know that in 1978, a major record label tried to suspend her entire contract after discovering that she had recorded real sex calls with her mistresses and turned them into music. A technician recalled, "I heard a track in the studio. It wasn't singing, it was a release. It was so real it made me shudder." The album Still Caught Up is not just about adultery. It was an incriminating account of herself, of the men who used sex to control her, and how she learned to play the game again. But it also left Millie in a state of anxiety. She was once threatened by a fan who wrote her a letter, "If you ever open your mouth about animal sex again, I will come to your next show and shut you up forever." During a tour in Dallas in 1985, Millie disappeared for 2 days. The official reason was fatigue. but a backstage staffer revealed that she had been held captive in her hotel room by an ex-lover who became jealous because a song she had performed the night before contained details about them. No one called the police. Everything was settled quietly, and Millie, the next day, was back on stage as if nothing had happened. Her love life was more complicated than her lyrics. At one point, she fell in love with a married producer who released a raunchy demo as artistic revenge. In a rare interview, Millie said, "I didn't lose faith in men. I lost faith in the industry. It wanted me to be sexy and decent, but I'm not Madonna. I'm a country girl who swears." It wasn't until the 2000s, when female rappers began to be celebrated for their bold lyrics, that Millie's name was recited as the grandmother of rebellion. But no one knew that she was living alone in a small apartment in Atlanta, still receiving spam attacking her for destroying black culture. She was the first woman to speak her mind, sing her mind, live her mind, and be turned away by the entire male world. But as she said, "I don't need to be loved. I need to be remembered as the one who didn't shut up." 17. Ike Turner. Ike Turner, the father of rock and roll, or the devil of Tina Turner. Internal documents from his arrests in 1974 and 1989 revealed that the man who created the first rock sound was also the man who scarred many women for life, both physically and mentally. Ike Turner sent America into a frenzy with Rocket 88, widely considered the first rock and roll song in history. But as he walked off stage, Los Angeles police called him by another name, the man with the record. In 1960, he met Anna Mae Bullock, who would later become known as Tina Turner. For the next 16 years, Tina was his lead singer, his partner, his ornament, and his victim of brutal abuse. She was rushed to the emergency room several times, diagnosed with a broken jaw, bruises from a fall, but medical records never listed who caused it. She said, "I fell down the stairs," recalled a nurse in St. Louis in 1971. But her hands were shaking when she signed the papers, and her eyes like someone who had been tortured. A confidential Motown document revealed that Ike had forced Tina to have sex immediately after a show, regardless of her health. Once, when she was running a high fever, he smashed furniture in the room, shouting, "You can be sick with the world, but you can't be sick with me," a band member recalled. "I heard her crying, but I kept quiet, because I needed the money." After Tina escaped from him in 1976 with only a few pennies in her sock, Ike spiraled out of control. He became heavily addicted to dangerous drugs and was arrested for assault and weapons possession. The FBI had him under surveillance for suspected drug trafficking in the entertainment industry. But the evidence was insufficient. In 1989, he was arrested for assaulting his new girlfriend, an unknown singer he had trained. She refused to testify. The case was hastily closed. Ike died in 2007 of a drug overdose. The media reported it, but no one mourned. Tina did not attend the funeral. "I forgive him," she said. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back. A tape was found after Ike's death, in which he mumbled to himself while playing the piano, "I invented rock and roll, but I didn't invent love." They say genius and monster are sometimes the same thing. But when the truth is buried in silence for years, it's not the monster, it's the people who know but don't dare speak up. 16. Bobby Womack, the man who was cursed by his own friend's blood. Even the toughest of men would shudder at the story of Bobby Womack, a man who survived the music wars, but not the moral scars he created himself. Born in Cleveland in 1944, Bobby was the embodiment of R&B, sensitive, passionate, and passionate. He began his career with the Valentinos and was supported by Marvin Gaye as a younger brother. But when Marvin died in 1984, the unexpected happened. Bobby married Anna Gordy, Marvin's ex-wife, just months after the funeral. The entire music industry was shocked. It was said that he had not yet had time to wipe away his tears before lying on the bed of the deceased. The story did not end there. After moving in with Anna, Bobby began an affair with her stepdaughter, Marvin Gaye's daughter, one night. The girl discovered that Bobby had kept her intimate photos and called her mother. The two women fought in the apartment. Bobby escaped but left behind a recording of an apology, which to this day, no one has heard in full. The public outrage was so great that he could not go out on the streets. Radio stations boycotted his music for nearly a decade. One musician who worked with Bobby said, "I don't know what was scarier, the music he made, or the way he lived outside the studio." Bobby turned to drugs and suffered from severe hallucinations. He once ran out into the street at night and shouted, "I am the devil, but I don't want to die like the devil." He was sent to rehab and disappeared for years. When he returned in the early 2000s, he released The Bravest Man in the Universe, a belated attempt to redeem himself. He died in 2014 of heart failure. The media reported very lightly, but old fans remember he did wrong. But his music is the painful truth. No one knows where he was buried specifically, as if Bobby's life itself had been erased by the wrong choices that could not be taken back. Not everyone can step out of the darkness they created, but perhaps Bobby once hoped that one day the music he left behind would help someone not repeat himself. 15. Rick James, the sexiest monster in R&B history. He once said, "My body is the temple of sensuality," but no one knew. Behind the sunglasses-wearing eyes was an empty soul, only knowing how to absorb everything, including other people's bodies. Rick James needs no introduction. The creator of Super Freak once made the whole of America dance to the pounding drums and fiery funk. But when the stage lights went out, Rick did not return home. He entered dimly lit penthouses where women were naked and dangerous drugs were sprinkled on tables like table salt. In 1991, a woman testified that Rick and his girlfriend had held her captive for 3 days, raped her, tortured her with half-burned cigarettes, and laughed and filmed her. The case went to trial. The girl didn't remember the whole thing because she was forced to take drugs. But the photos of her injuries were undeniable. Rick was convicted, sent to prison in 1994 and released in 1996. The press called him the most handsome maniac ever to step on an R&B stage. "He didn't cry," said a prison official. "He just asked, 'Can I bring my guitar?'" Rick was unrepentant. When he got out, he still called himself Super Freak. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I'm a symbol of pleasure." But no one applauded anymore. Record labels turned their backs on him. MTV cut all his videos. The girls who once loved Rick now call him the Terror after the concert. Rick died in 2004 of a heart attack. He had dangerous drugs in his system, including methamphetamine, Valium, and 2 other painkillers. An unsent letter was found in a drawer, addressed to his daughter. In it, Rick wrote, "If you hear what they say about me, believe that at least half of it is true, and I regret not keeping the other half." No one can wash the blood off Rick James's hands, but if his story wakes anyone up before they fall into darkness, at least one soul has been saved. 14. Jackie Wilson, stage lover, real-life fugitive. On stage, he made women faint. In real life, some children grow up not knowing who their father was because he left before they could even say his name. Jackie Wilson is known as Mr. Excitement. He had a phenomenal voice and a wild dance routine that would have put Elvis Presley on his back. But no one told the truth. Jackie fathered at least 10 children with more than 7 women, many of whom never received a penny of child support. In 1961, he was sued for assaulting a model at an after-show party. The case was dismissed after the plaintiffs withdrew their case after an undisclosed sum of money. She was crying and bruised, said a witness at the party. But her mother said, "Don't ruin your future for a famous guy." Jackie often disappeared. He was seen in Chicago, holding hands with a teenage girl. A month later, someone said he was engaged to his co-star's ex-wife. The music community knew, but no one dared to say anything, because Jackie had money. He was a ticket seller. He was the only one who could make black and white audiences stand up and applaud. In 1975, he collapsed on stage while singing Lonely Teardrops, Stroke, Coma. For the next 9 years, he lay motionless, unable to speak, unable to sing, unable to remember anyone. His children argued over his estate. One of them said, "He was my father, but I didn't know his voice outside of the tape." He died in 1984. The funeral was small and quiet. The newspapers wrote a few lines. No one mentioned the lawsuit. No one mentioned the nameless children. But he left behind something that no one can deny: songs that made the world believe that love is real. Sometimes, people just want to remember an artist as the spotlight shines on him. But behind that spotlight, If we dare to look, we can see a deep darkness where the artist is also looking for a way out. 13. Sylvester, the queen of disco who lived in a man's body. They called him Aretha Franklin in a wedding dress, but not because of his voice, but because he dared to step onto the stage in a real dress, with a wig and false eyelashes, right in the middle of the 70s, a time when such a black man, if not beaten to death in the street, would be erased from every chart. Sylvester was born in 1947 in Watts, California. He was the first openly gay black singer to sing about homosexual pleasure without hiding it. The album You Make Me Feel Mighty Real was a manifesto for millions of people who had been forced to live in silence. But Sylvester was never fully loved by his community. A recording of an internal meeting of an R&B radio station in 1979 recorded him saying, "We can't broadcast people like that. Parents will call and take the airwaves off." Many bands refused to perform with him, saying they didn't want to be labeled gay. During a performance in Houston, people threw shoes and glass bottles at the stage. Sylvester didn't run away. He stood still, wiped blood from his forehead, and continued singing, "I am what I am." Some say it was a moment that brought the entire underground to its knees. But the press wrote a controversial performance. Few people know that in 1984, a former lover of Sylvester's sold private recordings of the two to a porn magazine, almost destroying him. He called it a wound that will never be mended. He lost friends, was fired from gigs, and had to perform in small bars under an assumed name just to make ends meet. In 1988, he died of complications from AIDS. There was no grand memorial, no national honors, just a small news report that read, "Disco singer Sylvester dies at 41. But in the years that followed, people began to recall him as a wounded icon who dared to live his truth too soon in a world that was not ready to accept the truth. Sylvester left behind an inimitable voice, but more importantly, he left a question mark for a generation. Why hide your true self just to get applause? 12. Billy Preston, the keyboard genius with too many locked doors. If music is the language of the soul, then Billy Preston was once likened to the interpreter between heaven and earth. But what the public doesn't know is that his soul has been locked in dozens of lawsuits, fears, and a string of secrets that no one dares to resurface. Billy was born in 1946 and was dubbed the sixth member of the Beatles because he was the only black artist ever signed to the legendary group. He played like a ghost, bringing funk into the pop and soul shrine. But when no one listened, he lived like a haunted man, with a past that had never been cleared up. In 1992, Billy was arrested for tax fraud, but while in custody, a series of other testimonies began to emerge, involving silent parties with teenage boys and missing videotapes. A retired FBI agent once hinted, "We have a file on someone who is known to have been involved in forced homosexual intercourse, but the witnesses don't want to come forward. It could be Billy." No one can say for sure. No one has sued directly. But from then on, Billy lived in a state of silent ostracism. Tours were canceled, and record labels cut contracts. One producer once said Billy called in the middle of the night, crying, asking why did they drop me? Billy died in 2006 after a long stay in the hospital for kidney disease. Many artists attended the funeral, but no one mentioned the scandal. Everything was swept under the rug. But a video went viral later in which Billy played in an empty church, just him and his guitar. His eyes were closed, and a tear rolled down his cheek as he finished with a quiet chord. When beauty becomes a veil of mystery, the artist is the loneliest. Billy Preston leaves behind music and many unanswered questions. 11. James Mtume, the rhythm master who lived in a sex labyrinth. James Mtume is a man who makes sounds that make audiences shiver, but his personal life has left many people feeling lost. Born in 1947, he was an underground jazz, funk, and R&B artist during the 70s and 80s, but outside of music. He lived in a sex labyrinth and strange relationships that few dared to exploit. James was the first to bring elements of meditation and black philosophy to funk music. But behind the scenes, he was famous for his closed love circles where band members, managers, and even lighting staff were said to sign a contract of silence to not reveal anything that went on in the silent room, a private rented penthouse for each tour. After the show, I was taken to a room with candles and drums, recalled a singer who performed with Mtume in 1977. No one said anything, just looked at each other. Then I left because I was scared. She never spoke out again until 2003 when Mtume was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award, and she sent an anonymous letter of protest, along with a detailed description of what she had seen. The letter was never published. After 1985, Mtume largely disappeared from the scene. He was said to have gone into politics and education, but no one knew where he lived or what he did. An investigative journalist tried to track him down, but was warned by an anonymous call, "Leave him alone. Some things should remain in the dark." Mtume died in 2022. His obituary only mentioned his music, but for some who have walked through his dark and light, memories do not rest easily. Not all artists are created to be understood. Some are born to challenge, to love, to hurt, and then to disappear into the void they have created. You have passed the halfway point of a painful and surprising turn of events, where the truth is not easy to accept, and memories of famous artists are covered in scandal. If the first 9 people have shaken you, then the remaining 10 faces will make you unable to take your eyes off them. But did the fans unintentionally put pressure on them to slide down? What do you think? 10. Donny Hathaway, the genius trapped in his voice. They call him an R&B angel. But Donny Hathaway does not believe he is human. A psychiatrist once wrote in his file that he thought he was being followed by the CIA through his guitar strings, born into poverty. Donny rose to prominence with a soft, sensual voice that he heard echoing in his head at night. In the late 1970s, while recording with Roberta Flack, Donny suddenly smashed the studio, screaming that the microphone was killing him. The tape still exists. There is no music, just a terrifying scream. That was the first time I saw an artist cry blood, not real blood, but a soul that melted, said a technician. Donny was accused of mental abuse of his wife and children. He would leave home for days, then return with newspaper clippings plastered all over the walls, like a map of the underworld. His relatives did not dare call the police, because if he was arrested, his music would die. On the night of January 13, 1979, Donny was found dead at the foot of the Essex House Hotel in New York. Police recorded it as a suicide, but a hotel security guard said he saw 2 men leave Donny's room 10 minutes earlier. The case was never fully investigated. Donny did not leave a suicide note, but in the notebook he carried, there was only one handwritten line: "I can no longer hear God." 9. Chandler, the tuxedo gentleman who had a dirty life behind the glittering stage. He was the epitome of politeness, always appearing in a white tuxedo, his hair slicked back, smiling softly as if he had never known scandal. But few people know that Chandler was once investigated for organizing an underground prostitution ring involving underage female fans during his tours in the South in the early 1970s. Inside sources at the record label tried to cover up the incident. An internal memo read, "The image of the R&B gentleman must be protected at all costs. I saw Gene take young girls into the backstage room," said a crew member. They never came out at the same time. Gene was never prosecuted, but his career began to decline. His album Groovy Situation flopped, and his tour was canceled for logistical reasons. A former lover said he kept intimate photos of women in a locked box under his bed. Later, when he was publicly threatened, he paid them for their silence. Gene disappeared from the music scene for nearly 20 years, living anonymously in the Chicago suburbs. When he returned to the stage in the 1990s, he said, "I'm older. I want people to remember me for the music." But people had changed. They only remembered that the man who sang Duke of Earl had been in the quagmire of a sex scandal and had never been prosecuted. He has never publicly apologized, but that silence is the clearest evidence of what the public does not want to believe. 8. Joe Tex, the hot-blooded cowboy who dared to challenge James Brown for love. Joe Tex was the rare person who dared to challenge James Brown backstage. But the reason was not because of music. It was because of a woman. She had been Joe's girlfriend, then fell in love with James Brown, then got back together with Joe, and on a fateful night in Macon, Georgia. In 1963, everything fell apart. James Brown came to Joe's show, unannounced, When Joe sang "You Keep Her" with lyrics that implied James was a love thief, James went berserk. Just a few minutes later, a group of armed men rushed backstage, fired shots into the air, and smashed up the dressing room. A security guard said I thought I was in a gangster movie, but it was real. Joe Tex escaped, but was banned from many big shows from then on. Show promoters feared scandal. His career went downhill. He drank a lot, was hot-tempered, and often quarreled with fans and colleagues. A band once canceled a contract because he stared at my girlfriend the whole show. In 1972, Joe Tex was found to be involved with extortion gangs in Houston, but was not arrested. It is said that he paid to have his name removed from the newspapers. However, the image of the honest cowboy was forever tarnished. He died in 1982 of a heart attack, but many still remember him as the man who dared to challenge the King of Soul just for a lost love. And sometimes, that makes him more pitiful than blameworthy. 7. Al Green, a voice of holiness, a body burned by betrayal. Al Green once made the church hold its breath with his angelic voice, but it was in a house outside Memphis that his girlfriend threw boiling water on his back. The reason is not in the Bible. In 1974, Al's ex-girlfriend Mary Woodson showed up at his house in the middle of the night while he was soaking in the bathtub. She poured boiling water over him without saying a word. She then shot herself in the bedroom. Police called it the worst emotional assault the R&B industry has ever seen. But internal records revealed that Mary had discovered Al was having affairs with 3 other women at the same time, including an unmarried woman in New Orleans. Al turned to religion, but lawsuits for emotional abuse from several ex-girlfriends continued. "I loved him with my heart," one woman wrote. "He loved me with his words." Although he is still alive and singing gospel, the image of a man burned by his unfaithful lover has become an indelible scar in the memories of his fans. 6. Ray Charles, the blind king who sees every woman's body except his own. Ray Charles couldn't see the light, but he could see every desire. It's said he fathered 12 children with 9 women. The real number may be higher. During the 1950s and 1970s, Ray was addicted to dangerous drugs. He traveled across the country with a group of female dancers who called him Daddy. A manager was fired for refusing to take an underage girl to his hotel room in Detroit. The local newspaper covered up the story. RCA Records paid for the cleanup. In 1961, Ray was arrested for carrying dangerous drugs in a suitcase, hidden in a cassette tape case. He was released thanks to a talented lawyer, but in the FBI's internal files, Ray was listed as an artist who poses a threat to society through immoral behavior. When he died in 2004, his children fought over his estate, some demanding DNA tests. He left behind great music, but also the question, how could a blind genius see through such lust and not see the consequences coming? 5. Red Foxx, the king of comedy in real life, was a cold-hearted gambler and heartless lover. Red Foxx made America laugh. But behind the laughter were unpaid bills, an abandoned wife, and a long list of Vegas brothels that owed him money. Foxx went bankrupt 3 times. In 1989, the IRS seized his assets in the middle of a movie set. But what made people angry most was that he abandoned his ex-wife, who had terminal heart disease, when she called for help. He told his secretary to answer, "I'm on tour." Foxx gambled his old wedding ring away, his co-star recalled, and told his girlfriend it was a good luck charm. After the financial scandal, he returned to performing at cheap casinos. No one applauded. He collapsed on set in 1991. The crew initially thought he was doing comedy. His death was a slap in the face to the character he played, poor but kind, because in real life, Red Foxx was left with debt and a final, painful laugh that no one bothered to mention. 4. Chuck Berry, the father of rock and roll and the women's bathroom obsession. He laid the foundation for rock and roll. But amid the sound of Johnny B. Good, there was a small door leading to the obsession that forever cracked Chuck Berry's image. In 1990, Missouri police raided a restaurant owned by Chuck. They found dozens of hidden videotapes in the women's restroom, recording women and girls in the nude. Berry said he did it to protect his property from drug dealers. But the photos didn't lie. "We were suspicious," said a former employee, "but no one dared to confront us." Berry was sued in a class action lawsuit. Some were settled out of court, the price more than $1 million. But his reputation was irreplaceable. Behind the scenes, he was known as Johnny B. Pervert. Toward the end of his life, he lived a quiet life, giving no interviews, performing no shows. When he died in 2017, the media celebrated his musical legacy but remained largely silent about the scandal. Silent, as if it had never happened. The greatness of the man cannot obscure the damage he left behind, and music history, sometimes, needs an apology. 3. Marvin Gaye, Angel of Love, swallowed by lust. He was the one who whispered sweet nothings into the ears of millions of women, but in his private diary. Marvin Gaye once wrote, "I don't believe in love. I only believe in possession." Gaye married Anna Gordy, the sister of the founder of Motown, who was 17 years his senior. But when they divorced, he fell into the hands of Janice Hunter, who was only 17. Friends said Janice didn't know that she was the prize in a sick psychological game. Marvin once took her into the studio and forced her to sing songs he wrote about, her betrayal. He was a serious sex addict. A close friend said Marvin used to secretly film his girlfriends and force them to watch them as a form of punishment. In his diary, he confessed that he used to get excited when others suffered because of him. After a series of toxic relationships, Marvin lived with his parents, as if he were running away from himself. But on April 1, 1984, his father, who had hated him for his immoral lifestyle, shot and killed him. The heart of soul music was broken in the house that had nurtured it. Great and sinful, Marvin Gaye is proof that no one can escape the darkness they create, not even those who sing about the light. 2. James Brown, the King of Soul, with an iron fist behind a fiery smile. James Brown made the world dance, but some women loved him who lived their lives trembling. He was arrested more than 10 times for assault, beating his wife, threatening his girlfriend, and causing trouble at a radio station with a shotgun. One night in 1988, he banged on the door of an insurance company office, suspecting them of stealing his toilet. When the police arrived, he drove away, was chased down the highway, and had his tires shot out. After that, James spent 15 months in prison. When he came out, he smiled to the camera, "I'm still Mr. Dynamite." A dancer once wrote to accuse him of rape in a hotel. The letter got lost. A hospital worker said his wife came in with bruises, but said she tripped on the stairs. Towards the end of his life, James founded an educational foundation for black children as a way to erase the violent past, but no one forgot the eyes of the women who loved him and cried because of his hands. James Brown taught us to dance, but also taught us that not all legends should be idolized. 1. Michael Jackson, the angel of music with suspectedly dirty hands. No one walked on the moon like Michael, but no one walked as deep into a public nightmare as he did. When the first child abuse allegations surfaced in 1993, the world was shocked. They were disbelieved. Then the lawsuit was settled out of court, then a second and a third. At Neverland, a housekeeper testified that he had seen Michael holding little boys in his sleep, but he didn't know what he was doing. A tape of a secret room where he kept children's underwear and sexually explicit comics was seized in 2003. His lawyers called it a collection. The FBI had been watching him for years, but there was no solid evidence. Michael died of a drug overdose in 2009. But to this day, a string of victims continues to come forward. His family calls them blackmailers, but those children are now adults. "I don't know if I was abused or loved," one said. That's the most terrifying part. Michael Jackson is a great icon, but the question remains, silent as an unfinished song, how to love an angel when their wings are stained with doubt. No one is born dirty. Many of the artists on this list were victims before they hurt others. If we truly love their music, perhaps the best thing we can do is learn to understand the loneliness that drove them into darkness. Thank you for taking the time to listen to these hard truths. If you believe that the past does not define a person, please leave a comment, like and share this video to spread understanding instead of prejudice.